What was the weirdest rule you had to follow in school? In elementary school we were not allowed to stand in circles because standing in circles leads to the gang life. No high fives. In fact, no contact with one another whatsoever. This was in middle school. The staff was tired of watching kids groping each other, I imagine. No high fives. Groping. I must have been giving high fives wrong my whole life. We had a hallway only for 6th graders in middle school. It was really strange, because it was in the middle of the entire school. But if any teachers found you there, you were sent to the principal's office. No same-sex hugging. Really weird rule. Apparently some kid got sick, and their parent blamed same-sex hugging. As a teacher, I had to make this rule. Underwear must be worn on Halloween. This was for college students. Edit to clarify. Underwear must be worn when sitting on the school's chairs during class, and it was because of a male student. In my old primary school, their solution to every playground accident was to put a fence up. Child tripped on a tree root. Put a fence around the tree. Child slipped on some mulch in the garden. Better set up a 6 feet high perimeter around the entire garden. Oh, what's that? Someone pushed another student off of a bench high ledge. Let's put up spiked stockade style poles to prevent that from happening again. It got so out of hand with so many playground restrictions the parents started insisting the removal of most of them. Bonus, the children's name for the principal was Mr. Pennison. In secondary school, high school, we were forced to leave the school in full uniform at the end of the school, meaning no jackets, unless you were out of the main gates, which are very far outdoors, so if it was raining you were ducked. Thank God that rule only lasted 2 weeks. In middle school we weren't allowed to clap during assemblies, because the vice principal thought it was too disruptive. We could only do jazz hands. This seems like a rule that was made up just because it was secretly hilarious to watch a room full of teenagers do simultaneous jazz hands with deadpan face expressions. The 6-inch rule: we weren't allowed within 6 inches of another person. 1. We aren't American. We don't use inches. 2. How could you stop hundreds of students from being close proximity to each other? 3. You're making a rule for adolescent teenagers, called the 6-inch rule. Hilarity ensues. It only takes one girl to stand a couple of inches from someone, and when questioned say, "But miss, he told me this was 6 inches." Forced to use a hair straightener for naturally curly hair. In Japan, curly hair was not allowed. How dare you be the way that you are. No stomping on soda cans laying on their side and walking around with them attached to your shoes. No running in the schoolyard or playground during recess or lunch. How TF do you expect to stop 500 children from running while they're out there playing? I had the opposite. Run as much as you want, but don't stay still. Monitors bothered me so much with that. I didn't want to move too much when the ground was in ice, because once a kid was sliding a patch of ice, bumped in my legs, and made me fall pretty hard on my head. I ended up in the hospital for a neck injury. I was in pain for 2 weeks, and now I hurt my neck very easily. It's not like I was fat or didn't move around every other time. They didn't allow the boys to have door on the bathroom stalls in high school. They let teachers use those bathrooms. Nothing like walking in on your 300-pound history teacher dropping a deuce. The same rule was enacted in my high school for 2 weeks. It had to stop after a large group of boys would get together during class and wander from bathroom to bathroom finding people who were taking a poop and then yell, clap, cheer them on for pooping. In the girls' room, if other girls heard you pooping you'd be considered gross, and they'd giggle at you and say rude things under their breath. Cause yeah, no, teenage girls apparently aren't humans with normal body functions. Because of gang affiliations, we were banned from wearing 3 items of red or blue. Things got a bit hairy on school spirit days, where they encouraged us to wear our school colors red, white, blue. Not really a rule. More of a, if this isn't illegal, then it should be sort of think. Someone emptied all the soap in the boys' bathroom onto the floor my freshman year, and the school retaliated by leaving the dispensers empty for the next 4 years. It was disgusting. Travel soap kept in my bag through high school. Way back in elementary school we weren't allowed to walk around the school in groups larger than 3 because it intimidated the primary grades like ducking what? I picture a bunch of 4th graders in jeans and leather jackets snapping while swaying side to side looking for some trouble. My school dates back to the 13th century, so we had some archaic rules still floating around. My personal favorite was that the head boy gained the right to grow facial hair and graze his sheep on the headmaster's lawn. I had severe kidney problems when I was in secondary school. The rule was that when we were in the yard, you couldn't leave the yard until break lunch was over. Like they literally locked the gates to stop you from leaving once in the yard. I had multiple arguments with teachers for not letting me go to the toilet, then getting bitched at in classes for asking to go or being late. In high school, skirts were to be no shorter than 12 inches off the floor. People wandered through the halls measuring. We had a lesson about how fire needed oxygen to continue burning. So, they said a fire would eventually go out if in a contained room with no extra oxygen. Our teacher then assigned a different student every other week to be in charge of making sure all the windows were closed before leaving if there was a fire. Thankfully, we never had an actual fire. No playing with kids in another division. Division 1 was grades 1, 3. Division 2 was grades 4, 6. Division 3 was grades 7, 9. People in Division 3 and most of Division 2 didn't pay attention to Division 1. But when I was in grade 4, all my friends were in grade 2. Nobody was a jerk to a younger kid just because they were younger. Some of us had siblings in another division. I ignored the rule since it wasn't enforced much. My high school started to do a school shooter drill twice a semester my senior year. They had a dude come in the front door during lunch, blow an air horn and shout, "This is a shooter drill. Run." He had a water gun and would shoot kids with it and then tell them they had been killed. Me and my friends casually finished our lunch as he shot us, then left out the kitchen side door to leave the building. Half the senior class ended up leaving as they had this guy go through half the school and through the freshman center over the course of half an hour. It was pretty ridiculous and happened several times, usually during lunch. When I was in elementary school, we had a rule that kids were strictly not allowed to touch rocks. No rocks. Not pebbles. Not big rocks. No rocks. I got put in timeout a few times for touching rocks. The problem was, our playground was built on a pebble pit. If you fell or wanted to sit on the ground to play, you could very well be singled out and punished for touching rocks. It was a huge tattle fest too. Kids would catch others touching the rocks and run to tell the pet coaches, who would immediately interrogate you. Did you touch rocks? Tell me the truth. I found a really cool rock in 1st grade and decided to show it to my coach. I told her it looked like an alligator's skull. She smiled at me, took the rock, and chucked it as far as she could, then bitterly told me, "Don't touch rocks. If you kept touching rocks, you'd be made to walk around the playground in circles sometimes until you had sufficiently learned your lesson." I once walked in circles with a few other kids until playground time was over. It felt like forever, but it was probably like 15 minutes. Too long. Didn't read my school had a don't touch any rocks rule. I used to go to a K-12 charter school, and you weren't allowed to take left turns. Is your next class to your left? Nope, sorry, you have to walk right all the way down to the end of a hallway before you start back towards your next class. That whole school was backwards. No band shirts at my Christian school, but the only ones that would be recognized were Christian bands. So you could get away with almost anything else. Red Hot Chili Peppers. That into cooking. Couldn't dance, show our shoulders, or play games on school campus. School dances were sit-down meals instead, as we were not allowed to dance. God is against dancing apparently. Our high school got a wild hair up their collective ass that we were spending too much time in the bathrooms. So they tried to set up a bathroom schedule where you could only use them during certain hours of the day without a pass. And to get a pass you had to convince a member of the staff that you really had to go. They had staff members guarding the bathrooms to make sure you had a pass to use the bathroom. It wasn't until a combination of classroom walkouts, bathroom sit-ins, citations of laws, parent complaints, and several insinuations that the rule was somehow racist that they gave in and rescinded the rule. There was silent time in the lunchroom in Catholic elementary school at the beginning of lunch, ostensibly for prayers grace. I remember sneezing due to allergies and having to miss recess. Never forgave those ducking nuns. All the girls have to keep their hair short, which was nothing new in a nation school. Strangest variation on the fact was that the dance club girls could all have long hair, but as soon as they finished their last dance competition, they are required to cut their hair short too. No hugging. All of the girls in elementary including myself would hug each other if we were friends. We would also hug certain teachers because some were really amazing people and helped out less fortunate students like me. We were only allowed to fist bump. Both the teachers and students did it anyway despite the principal monitoring the hallways all the time to try to stop it. Duck you, Miss McRae. We had to ask to remove our jackets in class. Not overly weird, but I went to a language school, and in our French-German classes, we were only allowed to take our jackets off if we asked in that language. Kinda hard for a 11-year-old who was still using Matilda to spell the word difficulty. In college, we had a professor who assigned seats. She claimed she did it to remember our names, but she never remembered our names. High school. No backpacks. No leggings. Girls must only wear minimal makeup, no lipstick. No colored hair. As if anyone listened, nothing with a skull, weapon, or allusion to death may be worn. No plain colored shirts, shoes, bandanas, etc. for fear of color gangs. God forbid the green gang gets us. Women must adhere to a strict dress code. Fingertip length garments. No tank tops of any kind. No vests. No backless garments. No visible bra straps. If the edges of your bra could be detected from the outside of your shirt, you got detention. No sweatpants or any kind of pant with an elastic waistband. Men may not sag pants. Sweatpants were permitted. No bandanas or do-rags. No physical contact of any kind. No hugs, hand holding, kisses, high fives, fist bumps, or anything including physical contact. Pants may not have more than 4 pockets. This goes for both genders. No chain wallets. No purses. No wandering the halls before school began. No cell phones may be permitted on the property at any time. Bringing a cell phone at all resulted in phone being taken and not returned to you or your parents. Phones were smashed or tossed into the pond. Once in the lunchroom, leaving the lunchroom at any time until lunch was over resulted in detention. This included no bathroom breaks. Middle school. All of the above, but also had assigned seating in lunch. There were more, but this is just what I remember off the top of my head. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.